bound to a fence post to die until a mysterious outlaw cut her loose. The twin suns of New Aurora burned high in the sky, casting long, twisting shadows over the endless plains of sand and jagged rocks. Cassidy Rain squinted against the heat, the rope biting into her wrists as she struggled against it. She was tied to a rough wooden fence post outside the small frontier town of Dusthaven, her boots scraping the dry, cracked earth. Her throat was parched, her hair matted with sweat, and a low wind kicked up clouds of red dust around her. She had been left there as punishment. The townsfolk whispered that she had stolen quantum crystals from the corporate supply convoy, a crime punishable by death in this remote part of the galaxy. She had protested, of course, but the sheriff didn't care. His cybernetic arm gleamed in the sun as he walked away, his metallic fingers flexing with artificial precision. "Enjoy your last hours, Cassidy," he said, his voice cold and mechanical. Cassidy leaned back against the fence post, trying to think. Her mind raced through the events that led her here. She had been on a job, a daring heist of the crystals, when everything went wrong. Her partner had betrayed her, slipping away with the loot while leaving her to face the sheriff's wrath. And now, as the sun beat down on her, she wondered if she would even see tomorrow. The wind whistled across the plains, carrying with it the faint hum of drones. Small flying machines patrolled the skies for any sign of trouble, their sensors scanning for movement. Cassidy's stomach tightened. If one of those drones noticed her, it wouldn't hesitate. Her gauntlets, normally able to project short-range energy shields, had been stripped by the sheriff. She was defenseless, left with only her wits and the stubborn streak that had kept her alive this long. She closed her eyes for a moment, taking deep, uneven breaths. Her mind went to the stars above, imagining the places she could be instead of tied to a fence post in the middle of nowhere. She could almost see the icy rings of Uranus, the crowded markets of Valara Station, even the floating cities of the corporate core worlds. But here, in Dusthaven, she was trapped. A shadow fell across her face, and she opened her eyes. At first, she thought it was another drone, or maybe a stray scavenger from the town. But this figure moved differently. Graceful, almost gliding over the sand. Cassidy squinted. It was a person. A man, tall, wearing a long coat that shimmered with metallic threads. On his back was a sleek hoverbike, hovering just above the ground, glowing faintly in the heat. The stranger stopped a few feet away, resting one hand on the hilt of a laser-edged blade. Cassidy's heart leapt. Who was he? Friend or foe? She had learned long ago that strangers in New Aurora were rarely trustworthy, especially ones who arrived in dramatic fashion. The man spoke, his voice calm but firm. "You're not going to die here. Not if I have anything to say about it." Cassidy narrowed her eyes. "And why would you care? Outlaws don't save people without a reason." He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stepped closer, his boots barely leaving tracks in the sand. "Maybe I like saving the ones who can get themselves out of trouble," he said, almost with a smile. "Or maybe I just like a challenge." Before Cassidy could respond, he drew his blade in one smooth motion. The edge shimmered with a faint blue light, cutting the ropes that bound her wrists. Cassidy rubbed the sore skin, watching the blade warily. Why help me?" she asked. "Because you're not ready to die yet," he said simply. "And because someone in this galaxy has a score to settle." Cassidy didn't ask for more details. She swung her legs free and stood, brushing sand from her pants. She looked at the hoverbike. "I assume that's mine now?" she asked. The stranger gestured toward it. "Hop on. We don't have much time." Cassidy climbed onto the seat behind him, gripping the sides as the bike hummed to life. The engines flared, lifting them above the sand. Behind them, Dusthaven grew smaller, the small town nothing more than a cluster of buildings in the vast plains. "Who are you?" Cassidy asked again, her voice sharper now, that adrenaline surged through her veins. "Call me Rook," the man replied. His eyes, dark and piercing, seemed to glow slightly in the harsh sunlight. "And you are Cassidy Rain. I know who you are. I've been watching for a while." Cassidy felt a shiver run down her spine. "Watching me? Why?" Rook didn't answer immediately. Instead, he guided the hoverbike over the dunes, moving with a grace that made Cassidy wonder if he had done this all his life. "There are worse things than the sheriff out here," he said finally. "And if you want to survive, you need to learn quickly. Stick with me, and maybe you'll see another sunrise." The wind whipped around them as they soared over jagged rock towers. Cassidy felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. She had escaped death, but she had no idea what waited ahead. Every rusted tower and deep canyon could hide a patrol drone, or worse, bounty hunters looking for a reward. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Somewhere safe." "For now," Rook said. "But the galaxy doesn't give second chances easily. You'll have to fight, and you'll have to trust me, or die trying." Cassidy clenched her fists, the sting of the rope still raw on her wrists. "I fight better than most," she said. "And I don't trust easily, so that makes us even, I guess." Rook chuckled softly, a rare sound in the empty plains. "I like your spirit. You might just survive this yet." As they flew further from Dusthaven, Cassidy allowed herself to glance back one last time. The town was small, unimportant to most of the galaxy, but to her it had been a place of reckoning. She had been bound, left to die under the twin suns, but now, with Rook at her side, the endless plains didn't seem quite so deadly. The desert stretched endlessly before them, a sea of red sand and jagged rocks. Yet Cassidy felt a spark of hope she hadn't felt in days. She didn't know where Rook was taking her or what dangers awaited, but for the first time in a long time she was moving, and she was alive. And sometimes that was enough. The wind howled across the barren plains of New Aurora, kicking up clouds of red dust that stung Cassidy Rain's eyes. She leaned forward on Rook's hoverbike, holding on tight as the engines hummed and glowed beneath them. Her heart pounded in her chest, not just from the speed but from the realization that the sheriff wouldn't let her escape so easily. Behind them, faint blue glows dotted the horizon. Patrol drones, small, agile, and armed with scanners. They had been deployed as soon as Cassidy had disappeared from Dusthaven. Even in the emptiness of the desert, the corporate sheriff's reach extended far. "Stay low!" Rook shouted over the roaring engines. He leaned sharply to the left, skimming over a ridge of jagged rocks. Cassie adjusted her grip and followed his movements, trying not to let her fear take control. She had ridden hoverbikes before, but nothing like this. Rook handled it like an extension of his own body, the bike weaving through the rocks and sand like it was dancing. "Where are we going?" Cassidy asked, her voice barely audible over the hum of the engines. "Somewhere they can't follow easily," Rook replied, eyes scanning the horizon. "The wastes up ahead are full of magnetic sandstorms. Drones don't handle those well." Cassidy nodded, though she didn't fully understand what a magnetic sandstorm was. She trusted Rook. He had saved her life once already. She doubted he would lead her into a trap. But even as she tried to steady her breathing, a chill ran down her spine. The desert was dangerous in ways no one could imagine. Quicksand pits that swallowed hoverbikes, jagged cliffs, and strange energy fields that made the compasses spin wildly. The first drone caught up sooner than she expected. It hummed like a swarm of angry bees, scanning for heat signatures. Cassidy squinted through the dusty air, trying to see its approach. Rook shifted his weight and swerved sharply. "Hold on!" he shouted. The bike's engines roared louder as they descended into a narrow canyon. The walls rose high on either side, jagged and unstable. Cassidy could feel the wind whipping her hair into her face, sand scratching her cheeks. She dug her heels into the footrests, gripping tightly. The drone followed, relentless. It adjusted its altitude, moving with an uncanny precision. Cassidy's stomach flipped. "We can't outrun it forever," she yelled. "We don't have to," Rook said, his voice calm. He twisted the bike sharply to the right, heading toward a cliffside marked with glowing blue crystals. "Watch this." Cassidy's eyes widened as the crystals lit up, casting strange patterns of light across the canyon. Rook maneuvered the bike close, and the crystal's energy created a magnetic pulse that disrupted the drone's sensors. The small machine wobbled, sparks flying from its circuits before spinning out of control and crashing against the canyon walls. Cassie let out a long breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "You've got tricks up your sleeve," she said, impressed. Rook shrugged, his eyes glinting. "I've survived this long by knowing a few things others don't, and by being willing to bend the rules." Cassidy glanced at him. There was something mysterious about Rook, something that made her both wary and curious. His coat shimmered slightly in the light, and the faint hum of energy around his pistols made it clear he was not an ordinary outlaw. She didn't ask more. Some questions had a way of answering themselves later, sometimes with danger attached. They rode in silence for a few minutes, the canyon walls narrowing and twisting around them. Cassidy's mind was alive with possibilities. She wondered why Rook had saved her. Outlaws didn't usually help strangers without a reason. And if he did have a reason, she wasn't sure she wanted to know just yet. Suddenly a flash of movement caught her eye. A second drone, larger and armed with twin laser turrets, hovered at the canyon's entrance. Cassidy froze for a split second. They were trapped. "Hang on!" Rook shouted. The bike shot upward, skimming over a narrow ridge. Cassidy leaned forward instinctively, the wind nearly knocking her off balance. The bigger drone fired a laser, and a pillar of energy struck the sand just behind them, sending debris flying. Cassidy's heart raced. Rook laughed, a sharp, confident sound. "They never learn." He dove the bike into a series of tight turns, zigzagging between rock towers and over sand dunes. Cassidy gritted her teeth, holding on as the ground blurred beneath her. Sparks flew from rocks, and the smell of burnt metal filled the air as drones tried and failed to keep up. As they approached a massive canyon known as the Crater of Echoes, Rook slowed slightly. Cassidy noticed that the air shimmered here, like heat waves dancing on the horizon, but distorted. "What is this place?" she asked. "Quantum distortions," Rook said. "The wastes are full of them. They can bend sensors, scramble electronics, even play tricks on your eyes. Perfect place to lose unwanted guests." Cassidy's eyes widened. The ground ahead looked unstable, with ridges that seemed to rise and fall unnaturally. "Is it safe?" Rook smirked. "Depends on your definition. Stick with me, and you'll survive. Step out of line and, well, let's just say the wastes don't forgive mistakes." They plunged into the crater, the distortions making the canyon look like it was alive. Rock shifted subtly under the bike, and the path twisted in ways that seemed impossible. Cassidy felt a thrill run through her body. She had never experienced anything like this. Danger, speed, and the unknown all mixed together. A drone appeared out of nowhere, as if materializing from the shifting air. Cassidy's heart skipped a beat. Rook didn't hesitate. He pulled a small lever on the bike, and a pulse of energy shot from the rear. The drone's sensors went haywire, and it collided with the canyon wall, shattering in sparks and metal fragments. Cassidy laughed aloud, a mix of fear and exhilaration. "You're unbelievable!" she shouted. Rook glanced back at her, a faint smile on his lips. "We're not out of the woods yet," he said. "These wastes hold more than drones. Pay attention, Cassidy. Every rock, every ridge could be hiding danger." She nodded, her mind sharp now, senses alert. The fear that had gripped her at the fence post was gone, replaced by adrenaline and focus. She realized that survival meant more than escaping death. It meant understanding the land, the machines, and the people who hunted her. For the next hour, they raced through the Crater of Echoes, twisting around rock towers and narrowly avoiding shifting sand pits. Cassidy began to notice Rook's techniques, how he used the magnetic fields in the air to lift the bike, how he anticipated the drone's attacks, how he moved as if he and the hoverbike were one. She felt a strange admiration mixed with suspicion. Finally, they reached a ridge overlooking a vast plateau. The winds here were calmer, the red sands stretching endlessly beneath the twin suns. Cassidy could see Dust Haven far in the distance, a tiny dot on the horizon. She realized how far they had come. "Are we safe now?" she asked, still catching her breath. "For now," Rook replied, "but they'll be back. Drones, bounty hunters, the corporate sheriff, they don't give up easily, and neither should you." Cassidy looked at him, the exhaustion catching up. "Why did you save me?" she asked quietly. Rook's eyes were distant for a moment, as if looking back at something long past. "Because you're not ready to die, and because some scores in this galaxy need to be settled." Cassidy didn't press further. She had learned that some mysteries revealed themselves in time, and some only in fire and danger. For now she was alive, and that was enough. The twin suns began to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the wastes. Cassidy Rain sat on the back of the hoverbike, feeling the wind on her face, the rush of survival, and a strange spark of hope. She had escaped death once, and with Rook by her side, she might just live to see the next sunrise. But the desert was wide, the dangers endless, and she knew this was only the beginning. And for the first time in days, Cassidy allowed herself a small defiant smile. She was no longer tied to a fence post. She was free, riding across the wastes, ready to face whatever came next. The desert winds had calmed, leaving a quiet stillness over the wastes. Cassidy Rain and Rook had finally stopped on the edge of a rocky plateau, overlooking a vast canyon carved deep into New Aurora's red sands. The twin suns had begun to sink lower, casting long shadows across the jagged terrain. Cassidy's hands still ached from gripping the hoverbike, but her mind was sharp. She knew this calm would not last. Rook shut off the engines, and the hoverbike hovered quietly above the ground. He turned to Cassidy, his eyes glowing faintly in the dying light. "We need to rest for a bit. You've been through a lot today." Cassidy swung her legs off the bike, dust falling from her pants. "Rest? I don't think the sheriff will let me catch my breath anytime soon." Rook shrugged. "He won't." But we can't fight if we're exhausted. He looked out across the canyon, scanning the horizon. There's a derelict space station nearby, orbiting the gas giant Valara. It's abandoned, mostly forgotten. No one would expect us there. Cassidy frowned. A space station? How do we get there? We're on foot, and that thing's in orbit. Rook smirked. I have ways. He reached into the side of his coat and pulled out a small device no bigger than a wristwatch. Cassidy tilted her head, curious. The device shimmered with blue light, and as he pressed a button, a small portal of energy flickered into existence nearby. Step through, Rook said. It will take us close enough to board. Cassidy hesitated, then nodded. She had learned to trust him, at least for now. Together they stepped through the portal, and the world around them twisted into a blur of light. Moments later they stumbled onto a metallic platform floating near the derelict station. The air smelled of ozone and rust, and faint sparks flickered from broken panels. This place has been abandoned for years, Cassidy said, running her fingers over a railing corroded by time. Why come here? Rook's eyes were serious. Because it's safe. And because we can plan our next move. You need to know the truth about the crystals you tried to steal. Cassidy's brow furrowed. The truth? Rook led her deeper into the station, ducking under broken panels and navigating corridors where the lights flickered. Those crystals aren't just valuable. They're dangerous. They can manipulate time itself. Small pockets of it, localized. That's why the corporations guard them so fiercely. Whoever controls the crystals controls power that no army can match. Cassidy's eyes widened. Time manipulated? That's impossible. Not impossible, Rook said. Just rare, and deadly if misused. He stopped in front of a large observation window, showing the swirling gas giant below. The sheriff and his corporate masters want the crystals to expand their control. You tried to steal them for profit, yes, but now you understand why people die over them. Cassidy felt a chill run down her spine. She had thought the crystals were just another high-value target, but now they were something far greater. She realized the heist had put her in far more danger than she had imagined. Why are you helping me? She asked quietly. You could have left me tied to that fence post. Rook's gaze softened, just for a moment. Because someone needs to stop the corporations from abusing this power. And you have a skill they don't expect. You think fast, you act faster. That's rare in this galaxy. Cassidy didn't reply. She wanted to, but her mind was spinning. Her life had been simple, or at least dangerous in ways she understood. Now, she was part of something far bigger than Dusthaven or the sheriff, or even the Wastes. Rook motioned for her to follow him into the central control room of the station. Dust and sparks swirled in the air, and the consoles flickered with residual energy. We need a plan, he said. The corporate czar is guarding the mining facility where the remaining crystals are stored. It's heavily defended and not just by robots. Automated defenses, drones, guards. It's a fortress. Cassidy's stomach tightened. She had faced danger before, but nothing like this. So what's the plan? Rook leaned over a console, pulling up a holographic map of the facility. Blue lines traced patrol routes, energy fields, and security hubs. We sneak in, avoid the main defenses, and use the crystals themselves to gain an advantage. Timing and precision are key. One mistake, and we're done. Cassidy studied the map, her mind racing. And my role? You'll help with the crystals, Rook said. You understand their energy better than anyone else I've met. We need you to stabilize them and prevent the systems from triggering defensive protocols. If we fail, the entire facility could lock down, or even self-destruct. Cassidy swallowed hard. So basically, I hold the key, and you take care of everything else. Rook smirked. Pretty much. For a while they sat in silence, planning, reviewing the map, and preparing for the dangers ahead. Cassidy felt a strange bond with Rook, a mix of respect and curiosity. She had been saved by him, taught by him, and now she was being trusted with something unimaginable. Suddenly, a sharp noise echoed through the station. A mechanical whir, like someone or something was moving. Cassidy tensed. Rook raised a hand. Quiet. From the shadows emerged a group of mercenary androids, their metal bodies gleaming even in the dim light. Their eyes glowed red and they moved in perfect synchronization. Cassidy's pulse quickened. They had been followed. Rook drew his pistols, and Cassidy realized her training had prepared her for moments like this. They moved together like a single unit, Rook covering the main hallway while Cassidy took a side passage, her quick reflexes allowing her to disable an android with a well-aimed shot to its power core. Sparks flew as metal clattered to the floor. The fight was tense but brief. Cassidy and Rook moved through the station, outsmarting the androids at every turn. Cassidy marveled at Rook's skill. He anticipated every move, every attack, while she improvised alongside him. By the time the last android fell, the pair were breathing hard but victorious. Cassidy leaned against a console, wiping sweat from her forehead. That was close, she said, her voice trembling slightly. Rook nodded. Too close. But it proves something important. He looked at her seriously. You can survive when it matters. And surviving is going to matter a lot more in the facility. Cassidy took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. She had been tied to a fence post to die just days ago, and now she was trusted to handle something that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. She felt a mixture of fear and determination, knowing she couldn't fail. As the sun set on New Aurora, casting the canyon and the wastes in fiery gold and red, Cassidy and Rook looked out the station's observation window. The galaxy stretched endlessly before them, planets, moons, and stars, but the danger of the crystals drew their attention. They had to move soon. Time was running out, and the corporations would not wait. Rook turned to Cassidy. Rest if you can. Tomorrow, we infiltrate the facility. And, Cassidy, I need you at your best. One misstep and everything we've done could be for nothing. Cassidy nodded. I understand. I won't let you down. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself a small sense of hope. The crystals were dangerous, the mission nearly impossible, and the future uncertain, but she was alive, and she was part of something bigger than herself. And with Rook by her side, she knew she could face whatever came next. The stars began to twinkle beyond the gas giant, and Cassidy allowed herself a moment to imagine freedom. Not just from the sheriff, not just from Dusthaven, but from the endless chains of danger and betrayal that had followed her. She would fight, survive, and maybe, just maybe, come out stronger on the other side. Tomorrow, the real test would begin. The mining facility loomed ahead like a fortress of steel and light. Cassidy, Rain, and Rook hovered above it on the hoverbike, the twin suns casting long shadows across the complex. It was a massive structure stretching high into the sky, with layers of energy shields, patrolling drones, and automated defenses blinking like watchful eyes. Cassidy swallowed hard. The facility was unlike anything she had ever seen, a mix of old frontier design and futuristic technology. Every detail spoke of wealth, power, and danger. Rook slowed the hoverbike, letting them drift just above a ridge that overlooked the facility. He glanced at Cassidy, his eyes serious. This is it. One mistake and we don't walk away. Understand? Cassidy nodded, determination hardening in her chest. I understand. Let's do this. They landed on a lower platform, hidden by the shadows of a massive energy shield. Cassidy could feel the hum of power from the crystals stored inside the facility, a strange pulsing energy that made her skin tingle. She had handled the crystals before, in smaller quantities, but here there were dozens, maybe hundreds, powering weapons, drones, and security systems. The thought made her stomach tighten. Rook led the way, moving silently through the shadows. Cassidy followed, staying close behind. They passed patrol drones and automated turrets, avoiding sensors and scanning for weak points in the security grid. Cassidy's pulse raced. Every step brought them closer to the crystals, and closer to danger. Finally, they reached a corridor lined with glass panels, showing the storage vaults where the crystals were kept. Cassidy could see them glowing softly in containment fields. The energy was mesmerizing. She reached out instinctively but stopped herself. How do we get past the shields? She whispered. Rook smiled faintly. With a little trick and your skill. He pointed to a nearby console, connected to the shield system. You stabilize the crystals while I reroute the energy. Timing is everything. Cassidy nodded, crouching in front of the console. Her fingers flew across the controls, carefully redirecting the energy flow. Sparks flew, and the air hummed with power. She could feel the crystal's energy thrumming through her, and for a moment she thought she might lose control. But she focused, steadying her hands. The shield began to flicker, creating a small window they could pass through. Rook glanced back. Now. Move. They darted through the gap, sliding across the polished metal floor. Cassidy's heart pounded. Alarms blared suddenly. Someone had triggered a secondary defense system. Red lights flashed, and turrets swiveled toward them. Rook pulled his pistols and fired with precision. Energy bolts streaked across the corridor, disabling the turrets one by one. Cassidy ducked behind a pillar, firing short pulses from her gauntlet to temporarily jam sensors. The two moved as one, a seamless combination of speed, skill, and strategy. Suddenly, Cassidy froze. Ahead, in the main vault chamber, she saw her former partner, the one who had betrayed her. He was standing near the crystals, attempting to override the containment fields. Cassidy's breath caught in her throat. "That's him," she whispered. Rook nodded. "Handle it. I'll cover the exits." Cassidy stepped forward, her fingers gripping a small control device. "You won't take them," she said, her voice steady. Her former partner turned, surprise flashing in his eyes. "Cassidy? You? How?" "No time for questions," she said, slamming the override. Energy surged from the crystals, forming a controlled pulse that disabled the machines around him. Sparks flew, and her former partner was thrown back by the energy wave, landing hard on the floor. He struggled to rise, but Cassidy's pulse held him down, preventing him from touching the crystals again. Rook moved in, his pistols raised. "Step away," he said firmly. Her former partner, realizing he was outmatched, sank back defeated. Cassidy exhaled slowly. She had regained control, and the crystals were safe, for now. But the danger was not over. The corporate czar, the mastermind behind the facility, appeared on a raised platform overlooking the chamber. He was tall, imposing, and armed with advanced energy weapons. His voice echoed through the room. "So, the outlaws think they can take what is mine?" "Foolish." Rook stepped forward, pistols ready. "This ends now." The czar activated his energy shield, sending a wave of force toward them. Cassidy ducked behind a pillar, feeling the heat of the blast ripple across the floor. Sparks danced around her, and small pieces of debris fell from the ceiling. "We need to disable him," Cassidy shouted over the noise. "I can use the crystals to slow him down, but you have to keep him busy," Rook nodded. "Do it." Cassidy reached out to the crystals, focusing her energy. She could feel their strange, pulsing power responding to her intent. The room seemed to shimmer, and time itself felt slower around the czar. His movements became sluggish, the energy shield flickering. Rook took the opportunity to fire precise shots, disabling the weapons around him. The czar roared in frustration, swinging the weapon that sent energy arcs across the chamber. Cassidy concentrated harder, stabilizing the crystal's pulse, and suddenly the czar froze mid-step, trapped in a localized time loop. His movements repeated over and over, unable to affect the world outside. Rook lowered his pistols, glancing at Cassidy. "Nicely done," he said, a rare smile on his face. Cassidy exhaled, exhausted but triumphant. "That was intense," she said, her voice trembling slightly. Rook nodded. "Too intense. But it's not over yet. We need to get out before the facility collapses." They retraced their steps, carefully navigating the corridors as the systems began to fail. Alarms blared, and automated defenses sparked and short-circuited. Cassidy guided the crystals through the final security gate, stabilizing the energy to prevent a catastrophic overload. Rook covered her, moving swiftly to disable any remaining threats. Finally, they reached the hoverbike. Cassidy lifted the crystals into a secure containment unit, and Rook helped her onto the bike. Together, they lifted off, soaring above the collapsing facility. Below them, the corporate czar remained trapped, his fortress crumbling as energy arcs and sparks danced across the complex. Cassidy allowed herself a small laugh. "We did it."
"We actually did it."
Rook's eyes glinted. "We survived. And we sent a message. No one controls everything." They flew toward the horizon, the twin suns dipping low, painting the wastes in fiery gold and red. Cassidy looked back at the crumbling facility, feeling a strange sense of closure. She had been tied to a fence post not long ago, left to die, and now she was free, alive, powerful, and with a new sense of purpose. Rook glanced at her, a faint smile on his lips. "You've done well." "More than I expected. The galaxy is unpredictable, but with the right choices, we can make a difference." Cassidy felt a spark of pride. She had survived betrayal, drones, mercenary androids, and a corporate czar. She had learned to trust, to fight, and to lead. And she had done it alongside a mysterious outlaw who had saved her life, guided her, and now stood as a partner in the unknown adventures ahead. As they soared across the vast plains, Cassidy realized that the journey was far from over. The galaxy held endless dangers and opportunities, but she was ready. She would face them, not tied to a fence post, not hunted, but as a survivor, a fighter, and someone who had earned her freedom. The twin suns set fully, leaving streaks of purple and orange across the sky. Cassidy Rain smiled, gripping the hoverbike, feeling the rush of the wind and the pulse of the crystals. She looked at Rook, who gave her a nod, silent but full of meaning. Together, they vanished into the horizon, free, unstoppable, and ready for whatever adventures awaited. Some stories end in death. Cassidy's began in it, but her story was one of survival, courage, and the start of a new frontier. And in the endless expanse of the wastes, she finally understood one truth. Being bound once did not define her. Choosing to rise did.